Welcome to the Muñiz Legal Podcast, From Injury to Inheritance.
Hey everyone, welcome into an all-new episode of the Muñiz Legal Podcast, From Injury to Inheritance, with Lizzette Muñiz, the founder of Muñiz Legal, the show that's dedicated to guiding you from life's toughest moments to lasting peace of mind. I'm your host, Mike Leon. You know, Lizzette, she's kind of like me. She was born in Manhattan. She was raised in the Bronx. She's a Brooklyn resident for over 2 decades, and now she's a proud resident of Ulster County. Lizzette has been serving clients across New York City and the Hudson Valley. She's a bilingual Spanish-speaking attorney who's been helping families obtain compensation after accidents and protect what they've worked hard to achieve throughout thoughtful estate planning. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about snow and ice injuries that happen in New York. I know all about that. And what people should know as the winter begins. Lizzette, it's good to see you as always. So, the winter is right now, we're in it as we're recording this. It's a busy season for injury cases. What type of, snow and ice accidents, what makes them so different from the typical slip and fall ones?
Well, thanks for having me, Mike. The snow and ice cases are definitely something that is happening right now. What makes them different is that unlike other premises cases where you might have a defect that remains for some period of time, with snow and ice cases, the conditions are transient. So snow melts, ice melts, and if you don't capture the evidence while it still exists, you could damage your personal injury case.
Well, let me ask you a question, because this is something I used to do as a kid, right? You go make extra money by shoveling snow for people. So New York has always had these icy sidewalks, unshoveled steps. But legally, what are the property owners actually responsible for, especially when big snowstorm hits?
Right. So that's a great question, Mike. So we have something in New York called the storm in progress rule. And so property owners aren't legally required to go and shovel snow while there's an active storm, or to salt ice while there's an active storm. However, within a reasonable time of the storm ending, the property owners must go and take reasonable precautions to keep people from slipping and falling on their properties.
And the timing seems to be matter a lot in those cases, like you said, right? The reasonable amount of time. So how does that really apply in real life? Like, what is a reasonable amount of time? An hour, 2 hours?
Yeah, it's a great question. There actually is no set number of hours. It's literally what's reasonable. And we, as plaintiffs' attorneys, have to determine what's reasonable given the circumstances of our case. I'm thinking of one particular case where I had a woman slip on ice in front of a private homeowner's property. And when she sent me the photos, the two neighboring properties were completely clear. But the property she fell in front of was completely covered in ice. So obviously that person had not taken reasonable precautions to prevent her fall. Another thing that we look at as attorneys is we will look at the weather reports. When did the storm stop? How long did it take for the person to come out and take reasonable precautions after the storm ended?
So let's take that example in isolation. So she fell, and there was two adjacent properties that had snow cleared. What other details or conditions at the scene usually make the biggest difference in proving the case? Like, what other types of evidence?
Well, in that case, that was a private house. So it was very important that she collect the address of the house. Sometimes when people fall in front of a store, it's more memorable. They can remember, oh, I fell in front of, the CVS, and they can tell us where they fell. But when it's a private house, you need to get that property address. If you can get a photo of the condition with the property address in the background, that's best. If you can get an independent source to document the time and location of your incident, such as an ambulance, EMS worker, that works as well.
Let me ask you about the CVS as an example, not the corporation. We don't want them to sue us, but let's just take, companies as an example. Different properties may have different obligations. So how does the responsibility shift depending upon where the fall occurs?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when it's a private house, it's typically going to be the property owner. But then when it's a commercial property, sometimes it could be the property owner and the tenant, and maybe even the person who was responsible to clear the snow and ice for the tenant and or the property owner. And then if it's a city-owned property, the city could also be involved. So it's very case and fact specific.
In a lot of these cases, people slip and fall. I get it. You feel embarrassed. You just want to go home after a fall. But in your experience, what consequences have you seen when the incident isn't reported right away?
Yeah, that happens a lot, and it's very detrimental in snow and ice cases, and any premises or trip and fall cases. You really need to stay there and collect the evidence and find out if there were any witnesses who would be willing to say that they saw the condition or they saw you fall at that time and place of the incident. And if it's a commercial location, if at all possible, to go inside and make an incident report and get a copy of that incident report. All of that will help your personal injury case later. And if you don't collect that evidence, it could vanish and it could make it very difficult or impossible for you to collect money for your pain and suffering.
And let me piggyback on, because it is a snowstorm. You just fell right during ice and snow that was on the ground. A lot of times people don't get the medical treatment like we just talked about. And especially the injuries sometimes aren't obvious, right? Pain lingers, happens maybe a week later, 2 weeks later. What happens when someone waits too long in that scenario to go get checked out?
What happens when people wait too long is it becomes more difficult to connect the injury to the accident. If you wait 2 weeks after an accident to go to a doctor and make complaints of your injuries and connect them to the accident, anything could have caused those injuries within that 2 week period.
So, but before, as we wrap on this episode, Lizzette, for the people out there that are listening to this, maybe they just fell in a snow and ice incident. What are some steps that you would advise them to take right away to make sure that their case, is going to be brought to justice?
Yeah, if you fell in a snow or ice case, it's really critical that you take photographs of the condition, so the snow and or the ice that caused you to trip, and not just a close-up of the condition. You need to take different angles that show the condition relative to any property addresses or that show the location, street address, so that we can properly identify where you fell. If at all possible, if you can notify the property owner and or the business that you fell and create an incident report, that also will help. And then finally, if you can call an ambulance and have them document in the record the time and place of location and the mechanism of the fall, that will also help you with your personal injury case.
Yeah. Lizzette, thank you for the time, insights, the analysis. I truly appreciate it as always.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
And that's it for today's episode of the Muñiz Legal Podcast, From Injury to Inheritance. If you want to learn more about Lizzette, the work that she does over at Muñiz Legal, do me a favor, visit muñizlegal.com. You're going to find all the resources you need in English and Espanol to help you recover after an accident and protect your future through proper planning. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review and comment, or share the episode with someone who needs to hear it. As always, I'm Mike Leon. See everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.